show where we gather round. Yeah, come on, let's go. We demystify AI through conversations so real with people from all fields. Here's the deal.
Hello, Sam. Thank you very much for being here with me today to talk about AI.
Awesome.
I have some questions for you, doubts, comments about this topic. Are you ready?
I'm definitely ready. I've got my coffee. Can't wait.
Coffee is very important to talk about AI. We need to be
Exactly.
very awake to talk about this kind of
That's right. Yeah. Before it
So,
takes over, right? And makes the coffee itself and drinks it for us as well.
so as you know, I am a lawyer.
Yeah.
Sometimes lawyers have a lot of documents to analyze in
Yeah.
transactions. How can AI help me to organize and analyze a huge amount of documents?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. So there's many different kinds of AI that can help people like yourself. So there's many different uses of AI. AI has been around for decades, actually, at least the theoretical part. It's only, I would say, in the last few years that the actual compute or the processing power has become really cheap. That's allowed us to sort of create these amazing models because we have a lot of compute power to sort of train, as they call it, train um, a model with a lot of data, like petabytes of data. So how can that help you practically? Is as a lawyer, I would imagine you work with a lot of documents, as you said. Now that's called unstructured data. So the LLMs, they're called large language models. They specialize in working with unstructured data, and they specialize in a few categories that probably will help you. So they do translation really well. So if you, as a lawyer, I don't know, might have some customers like in Germany or something, and you want to translate a document, in the past, the translator of Google might give you what you want in Portuguese or in English or whatever, but it wouldn't actually translate the spirit of what the text was telling you. It might, like for example, if you use any local terminologies, any jokes or anything like that, it can't sort of, it wouldn't be able to translate it so well. It would translate it word for word. But as you know, grammar, Latin, Germanic languages differ in grammar and in sentences and all those things. So LLMs are really good at that. So you could use it for translation. LLM is really good at summarizing as well. So say you have like loads of documents from trials or whatever. I don't understand the legal world very well, but I'd imagine I've seen a lot of legal dramas, like such as The Good Fight and so on and so forth. But I would imagine you have a lot of documents that you want to quickly summarize and understand. So
Yeah.
summarizing is a really good use case for AI. So say you have a client, maybe they've been passed on from another lawyer to you, and they have an existing documentation of like 5 years worth of history, and you're having to meet with that client in 3 days. You could never like go through everything. So what you can do is you can feed all these documents into your AI model and just say, I'm meeting with this customer tomorrow. I'm a lawyer. I specialize in, I don't know, whichever law type you specialize. Can you give me a summary of what the problems are, what the particularities are, and the LLM can do that. It can do some other stuff as well that might not
Sorry.
particularly. Yeah,
Let
yeah,
me ask you
yeah.
something. The AI can do that, but I have to ask the AI the right question, right?
That's right. Yeah, so
There are
you have to give it the right prompt. That's right.
yeah.
And that's because of the way that this AI is trained. So they use what's called unsupervised learning. So they give it a lot of data. So imagine they give it the whole of the internet, right? And they just throw it at the AI. Now, previous versions of these LLMs, like GPT-3, they were giving you the right answers. They had a really good amount of data, but they weren't sort of specialized, and they didn't quite know what you were looking for from an answer. So to use, so you kind of have to point the LLM at where you want to get to. You have to be quite clear. So the clearer you are, the more context it has. So it's not as good as a human yet, because as a human, we sort of understand the context without it being said. Um, so there's a lot of stuff that is actually subconsciously that we've trained ourselves from, like being really young, that we pick up things on situations, when to be polite, when to not be polite, things like that. The LLM doesn't understand what polite means, so you have to explain to it that I want you, for example, to provide me the answer in legal terms, based in Portugal, all those things.
So I have to give the AI the context, right? The
That's
right.
right.
I have to
That's
explain the AI what exactly what I want to know.
That's right. Yeah. You don't have to do it manually all the time either. Um, so you could build a system or a chatbot.
But because there is a risk of hallucination, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right. But that comes with the package of it's like pros and cons. So if you want it, for example, if from a lawyer's perspective, if we go back to that customer that's been passed on to you, if they have a court date and you want to sort of understand 5 different ways that you can defend this customer, this client, right? Um, they've been sued for $5 million or something like that, and you need to defend this customer. And you want 5 different ways of how to defend this customer. You want the LLM to be creative, and that's why it hallucinates, because it doesn't understand the difference between being very creative and actually giving you truthful facts. So sometimes it will kind of um, go over the same amount of detail. It just doesn't have that human context. So yeah, it can hallucinate, but the better you explain to it what you want it to do, the better outcomes you'll get.
So we need today to be specialized in prompts.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I mean, it's probably a good way is, imagine you're talking to like a 5-year-old, that is like a 5-year-old Einstein, right? So it's super clever. It can do anything that you can imagine, but you have to explain it in every intricate detail exactly what you want to achieve. But you can, if you have the resources, you can build a chatbot, for example. You can do that today. You can build a chatbot powered by those LLMs, but specialized in, like, for lawyers in Portugal, in
I have
Porto,
to admit, I
right?
am trying to. I am trying to.
Oh, great stuff. Yeah, excellent.
But I'm trying to. It is very interesting to understand how these kind of models are trained because
Yeah.
there are a lot of data sets available.
There are a lot of data sets available. Now, it's a bit unclear, a few of those things, because like the big players like OpenAI, for example, they have used data that might not belong to them 100% of the time. Let's say, like they might have used GitHub code. So when, for example, I code, GitHub is a code repository. What that means is like a save place where you save all your code for your projects, right? So like 5 years ago, coders didn't expect that the code would be used to train an AI chatbot, for example. So there's a bit of drama in the community at the moment as to like why are these models being trained with my data and all those things. So it's quite interesting to see it unfold. But the capabilities are incredible and it's pushing the art of the possible.
There are a lot of legal actions pending in the US because of
Yeah,
the main issue is about the copyright related to this kind of code.
that's right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a bit of a Pandora's box because now that it's open, you can't close it anymore. Um, it's the beast is unleashed kind of thing, you know. So yeah, because you have LLMs that are popping up every other day. So you have other companies building their own LLMs. They take a copy of OpenAI. They've created like techniques to train it really quickly and efficiently. So it's interesting to see what will happen, definitely.
But um, how LLM works, in fact, I think we all of us are talking about this kind
Yeah.
of techniques, but we don't really understand how this works. Can you explain a simple way?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to get too technical, but it's an LLM is
Think
basically a
I am a
machine.
5-year-old. I am a
That's
5 year
right.
old and I
Yeah.
don't understand anything, please.
Okay. So I'll pretend you're an LLM then, trying to explain to you what an LLM does.
Yes.
No, no. So basically, what machine learning is, I'll start with that, is it's what some scientists have realized is that they've analyzed how the human brain learns things. And they've looked at our brain and they found that we have these little things called neurons and they fire. And what that means is a little electrical discharge happens whenever you're learning something, you create new pathways in your brain and all those things. So, so when you learn a new skill, for example, all these different connections between the neurons are created and new patterns of neurons are fired, emerge. So what they thought is they thought, why don't we copy that on code and create, instead of neurons, a similar thing in code, zeros and ones, zero for not firing, one for firing, for example, and get the algorithm, as it's called, we don't have to explain what that is yet, to learn itself what we want it to do. Um, so what we'll do, so in the same way as when you're learning how to play, to choose any sport, basketball, football, you know, um, every time you take a shot, if I'm your basketball coach, let's say, I might tell you that's great, and that gives you a point of reference that you're doing something good and you need to carry on doing that thing. So you're learning. This is how humans learn. And you translate that across to data. You give it and machine learning, you give it a lot of data and then you tell it, yes, this is what I want to see, or no, this is not what I want to see. Um, Now, what happens in the middle, it's a bit unknown and a bit magic, which is great. Um, but uh, but essentially, it mimics the human nature, and it does some other fancy things as well. But the main thing to know is that essentially, all it is, it just predicts the words that you want to see. So when I ask it any question, the best way to describe it is that a word calculator. I've heard this somewhere. I can't remember where. I think a front-end developer, a friend of mine, has used it. Every word, it doesn't understand the context. It doesn't understand what it says, right? Even though it looks like it understands what it says. Um, all it does is a statistical calculation of like this word should be preceded by this word, which should be preceded by that word, right? But for some reason, it produces things that make a lot of sense, even though it's just a statistical model at the end of the day. So that's the amazing thing about it.
Okay, right. This is the main reason why the context is very important. I have to give
Yeah,
the context and the right words for AI to predict the other words.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, your prompt. They call that the prompt.
Yeah,
Um,
really interesting.
so you might hear prompt engineering as terminology, things like that.
But we have here a lot of data, and there is something very important for lawyers, that is the attorney-client privilege.
That's right.
When I
Yeah.
use AI, how can I be assured that this is very, this is not, there is no breach of this duty?
Yeah. Yeah. So that is one of the risks of AI, right? It has especially the LLMs. They have a few risks, bias being one of them, um, hallucinations, which we kind of discussed, um, and data security as well is one of them. So a lot of people will put the sort of personal information on the prompt. Um, the thing is that prompt, because you're putting it in an online form, it gets stored somewhere, right? So I would say the industry is still trying to clear out and understand how to deal with the data security of those prompts. Um, the big players in this, like Google, OpenAI, what they have currently said is that they're not storing the data that you're saving, that you're sort of inputting on your prompt. Now, if you use ChatGPT, you can actually look at the historical trail of all the chats that you have engaged with,
Mhm.
including sensitive information. So if you try and put a test prompt and say, I have a client called Stam Bourgkis, and they have, I don't know, X amount, and they are being sued by Y. You
Mhm.
know, a month later, that prompt is still stored there.
Yeah.
Um, so but OpenAI have said, and I'm not a spokesperson for them, that they're not storing the private information, and if they are, they're using the utmost security standards and all those things. It's something that the industry will have to create a standard for, I believe. But with it being so new, it's just not quite there yet. Um,
So we need to be careful. We need to be careful, you know. When I build the
yeah.
prompt, I cannot give the personal information.
Exactly. Yeah. If you want to be safe, especially if you're dealing with sensitive information that's not your own and you haven't given consent to that data, um, in the same way that you wouldn't do that physically, you wouldn't like open someone else's letter, or you wouldn't give your customers financial report to your neighbor or something like that. You'd put the same amount of caution to it. Yeah.
We need a lot of training. A
Yes.
lot
Yeah.
of training, education to know exactly what AI is, what is prompt, what is an algorithm. You can explain to me the algorithm. I think we don't explain.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to understand an algorithm is
I
is
think.
yeah, just imagine it like an equation. This is like the best way for me to explain it. An equation, you have an equation, you have an input, and it gives you an output every time, right? You can change some dials, and it will give you another thing. So the big LLM itself is an algorithm as well. An equation, whatever input you give it, it will do its calculations. It's not as easy as like 2x plus y. It's a lot more complicated than that. But that's the very basic um, structure of it. It has an input and an output. There's a process in the middle, and the process in the middle is the algorithm, basically.
Do you have any further advice to give?
I think in terms of as a lawyer or data protection or how to use this technology.
Uh, as a lawyer, and I think my concerns are concerns of other people because we are using data and we don't know how this is processed. So
Yeah, definitely. Uh, First of all, by the way, there are ways to mitigate against those risks. So if you are worried about data in the chatbot that you're building, for example, now, you could make it so that there is a further AI that manipulates the prompt and understands if there's any sensitive information and scrubs them out from the prompt or randomizes them or things like that. So there's always I personally would say uh, definitely engage with the technology because it's going to be the future, is coming, well, it's here already,
yeah,
and
we have to
you
embrace it.
embrace it and learn how to use it because it's going to transform your world really. It will improve your productivity 10 times. Um, Even if you just use it for your simple grammatic, like, if you want to send emails out and you want them to sound good or look good or not be have any proofreading, all those things it's an incredible tool. But that's just scratching the surface. So yeah, definitely engage with it, I would say. But be mindful of the risks, obviously. Yeah,
We need to be careful. We need to embrace it, but be cautious at the same time.
exactly. That's right.
So, Stan, thank you very much. It was really interesting. I learned a lot with this
Awesome.
conversation, and I think people will learn a lot with you as well.
That's great. Yeah, if I'm allowed to plug the app and the company that I founded. So we've got Sigma3Digital is the company. I'm the CTO of Sigma3Digital. We offer all sorts of services for mainly accountancy and the lawyer space as well, legal space, uh, AI, data analytics, automation, app building, chatbots, all those things. We are in the MVP phase of our first product, which is called Insight Lab, which gives some information about UK companies using some AI and the information from Companies House. So yeah, hope that helps,
Yes,
Claudia.
but do you use it? It's like kind of risk analysis,
It's risk
financial
analysis.
analysis
Yeah, yeah.
using public data. Yes,
Public
right?
information, and we are doing very similar stuff to what we discussed because um, the financial statements, a lot of them are unstructured data. So we're using AI in our product to actually understand what those statements are telling us. And we're doing some other stuff as finding who has ownership of which companies and connecting the individuals that are connected within the companies, which helps us with some fraud detection. So if you're doing any legal analysis or any analysis of that sort, you use our product. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. It is really interesting and helpful, really helpful because it
Awesome.
allows us to understand and to analyze information in a quicker way. And
That's right. Yeah, I mean, to actually, if you were investigating at someone, let's say, and you wanted to see how many companies they were involved in, there's no other way apart from literally searching their name and going through people of similar names,
mm,
um, and then finding out these companies, then finding out which companies are closed, which companies are open. It's a minefield. So our app just simplifies that as well.
okay, thank you very much.
Of course.
Very much. It is interesting to get to know all this stuff and how everything is evolving and how it can change our lives
Excellent. Very happy to help and looking forward to seeing your chatbot as well, Claudia.
in future.
Ah, great stuff. No pressure. I need it ready for the next 2 months, please.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not a pro like you, but I will try.
Okay.
Maybe next time you will be interviewing me about my chatbot.
Exactly. Yeah, why not? Why not?
Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Thank
Welcome to our show where we gather round. Yeah, come on, let's go. We demystify AI through conversations so real with people from all